A shy girl comes for a breast cancer screening. Shockingly, her doctor is a young millionaire who is deeply in love with her. Emma Carter sat in the hospital waiting room, her fingers clenched tightly around the fabric of her sweater. The air smelled of antiseptic, and the low murmur of conversations, the occasional cough, and the beeping of distant machines only heightened her nerves. Her heart pounded so loudly she was sure Lily, sitting beside her, could hear it. "Emma, it's just a checkup," Lily reassured her, her voice soft but firm. "If there's anything wrong, it's better to catch it early." Emma swallowed hard. She had been putting off this appointment for months, convincing herself it wasn't necessary, that she was fine. But after feeling an unusual lump in her breast last week, panic had set in. She hadn't told Lily yet. She barely had the courage to admit it to herself. But what if the doctor is a man? Emma's voice was barely above a whisper. The mere thought sent a wave of anxiety washing over her, making her shift uncomfortably in her seat. Lily sighed, shaking her head. "Does it really matter?" Emma turned to her, wide-eyed. "Of course it matters." Lily gave her an exasperated look. "Emma, it's his job. You think you're the first shy woman to come in here? Doctors see hundreds of patients every week. I promise you they don't care." Emma bit her lip, her face heating up. That was easy for Lily to say. Lily, who was confident and outgoing, who had no problem talking to anyone, let alone allowing a stranger to examine her. Emma, on the other hand, had spent her whole life avoiding attention, avoiding situations that made her uncomfortable, and now she was willingly walking into one. Her fingers tightened around her sweater as the nurse stepped into the waiting room and called her name. "Emma Carter?" Emma froze. Her pulse skyrocketed. Lily nudged her. "Go on," she whispered encouragingly. Emma stood on shaky legs, feeling as if she were walking to her doom. She followed the nurse through the hallway, her breath shallow, her stomach twisting with anxiety. The walls seemed to close in as she approached the examination room. The nurse gestured for her to enter. "The doctor will be with you in just a moment." Emma stepped inside and took a deep breath. The room was bright and clean, the scent of disinfectant strong. A standard examination table stood in the center, a small desk with a computer in the corner, and medical posters decorating the walls. She wrapped her arms around herself, her nerves worsening by the second. Then the door opened and Emma turned, only to feel her breath hitch in her throat. Standing in the doorway was not the older, serious-looking doctor she had expected. Instead, Dr. William Hale was young, tall, and strikingly handsome. His deep blue eyes held a calm intelligence, and his dark brown hair was neatly styled, complementing his sharp jawline. His white coat hung perfectly over his broad shoulders, and the subtle confidence in his posture made it clear that he was used to being in control of situations like these. Emma's face flamed red instantly. This was the worst possible outcome. "Good afternoon, Miss Carter," William greeted with a warm, professional smile. His voice was smooth, soothing even, but it did nothing to calm her racing heart. "I'm Dr. Hale. I'll be conducting your examination today." Emma couldn't speak. Her throat felt dry. She forced herself to look at the floor, afraid that if she met his gaze, she might actually pass out. William noticed her hesitancy almost immediately. He had seen nervous patients before, but something about Emma was different. She wasn't just uneasy, she looked like she wanted to bolt out the door at any second. "Miss Carter," William said gently, taking a step closer. "I understand that medical exams can be a little uncomfortable, but I promise I'll do everything I can to make you feel at ease." Emma clenched her fists. She stammered, hating how her voice wavered. She wished she could disappear into the floor. William's expression softened. "Would you feel more comfortable if a nurse stayed in the room during the exam?" Emma hesitated. That would probably make it even worse. She shook her head quickly. "All right," William nodded. "I'll explain everything before we start, so you know what to expect." Emma swallowed hard and nodded, still avoiding his eyes. "First, I'll need to ask you a few questions," William said, sitting down at his desk and pulling up her file. His tone remained calm and professional, as if this were just another routine appointment, which to him it was. But to Emma, it felt like the most nerve-wracking experience of her life. As William asked about her medical history, Emma could barely focus. She answered in short, awkward sentences, keeping her gaze locked on the edge of the table. William, ever perceptive, picked up on her discomfort. "Miss Carter," he said, a trace of amusement in his voice, "you don't have to be so nervous. I promise I don't bite." Emma's eyes snapped up to his face, shocked by his light-hearted tone. William gave her a reassuring smile, and for the first time she felt the smallest sliver of relief. But that relief vanished instantly the moment he asked her to lie back on the examination table. Her whole body stiffened as she hesitantly climbed onto the cushioned surface, her arms locked at her sides. Every fiber of her being screamed at her to run, but she forced herself to stay still. William immediately noticed how tense she was. "Breathe, Miss Carter," he said softly. "I'll be as gentle as possible, and if at any moment you feel uncomfortable, just let me know." Emma nodded, her heart pounding so loudly she could barely hear his words. She squeezed her eyes shut as William reached forward. His touch was light, careful, professional, but her entire body reacted as if it were something far more intimate. She forced herself to stay still, clenching her hands into fists to stop them from shaking. William worked with precision, his movements meticulous and respectful. He spoke occasionally, explaining what he was doing, but Emma barely processed his words. She was too overwhelmed by her nerves, by the situation, and by him. Then, just as she thought she might pass out from sheer embarrassment, William pulled away. "All done." Emma exhaled sharply, realizing she had been holding her breath the entire time. "You did great," William said with a small smile. "I know that wasn't easy for you." Emma sat up, her face still burning with humiliation. She had never felt so exposed, so vulnerable, yet somehow William had made it bearable. He stood and moved toward his desk, typing something into her file. "I did find something," he said after a moment, turning back to her. Emma's stomach dropped. "It's nothing alarming," William reassured her quickly. "But I did notice a small lump. I believe it's benign, but I'd like to schedule a follow-up to monitor it just to be sure." Emma froze. A lump. The word sent an icy chill down her spine. William, seeing the fear flash across her face, softened his tone. "Don't panic. In young women, most lumps are completely harmless. But it's always good to be cautious." Emma nodded mechanically, but inside, her chest tightened with anxiety. William handed her a slip of paper. "I'd like you to come back in 2 weeks. In the meantime, if you have any concerns, don't hesitate to call." Emma took the paper with shaky fingers. "Oh, okay," she murmured. As she stepped out of the office, her legs felt weak. She had walked in fearing embarrassment. She walked out fearing something much worse. Emma sat frozen, the sterile white walls of the examination room closing in around her. Her mind replayed William's words on an endless loop. "I did find something. A small lump. I believe it's benign, but we need to monitor it." She barely noticed the sound of William typing into her medical file. Her breath came in shallow, uneven bursts, her fingers gripping the edge of the examination table. "Lump," she whispered, the word tasting bitter on her tongue. William, sensing the shift in her demeanor, turned to her with a calm but reassuring gaze. "Emma, I need you to breathe." His voice was steady, soothing. She inhaled sharply, realizing she had been holding her breath. William folded his hands on the desk and leaned forward slightly, his expression soft but professional. "Listen, I know this sounds scary, but you don't need to panic. Based on my initial assessment, this looks like a fibroadenoma, a benign tumor that's fairly common in young women. It's not cancerous, but we need to do further tests to confirm." Emma stared at him, but the words barely registered. Fibroadenoma, benign, not cancerous. Yet all she could think about was her mother. Her mother's pale, tired face flashed in her mind, the way her once vibrant laughter had been replaced by quiet pain, the hospital visits, the uncertainty, the endless waiting. And then, the day her father had sat Emma down, his voice breaking as he told her that the treatment hadn't worked, that her mother was gone. Her vision blurred. "Emma?" William's voice broke through her spiraling thoughts. She blinked rapidly, forcing herself back to the present. Her throat felt dry. "My mom, she couldn't finish the sentence, but she didn't have to." William's expression shifted, understanding immediately. His voice softened. "I see." He paused, watching her carefully. "Did she have breast cancer?" Emma swallowed the lump in her throat and gave a small nod. William leaned back slightly, his gaze never leaving hers. "I understand why this must be terrifying for you, but I need you to know that your case is different. Just because your mother had breast cancer doesn't mean this is the same situation. Fibroadenomas are non-cancerous, and in most cases they don't even require treatment. But to be absolutely sure, I'd like to schedule further tests." Emma tried to process his words, but the panic inside her refused to settle. What if he was wrong? What if this turned into something worse? What if history repeated itself? Seeing the hesitation in her eyes, William's voice took on an even gentler tone. "I promise we'll take this one step at a time. You're not alone in this, okay?" Emma exhaled shakily, nodding, even though her mind still screamed at her to run. William reached for a notepad and quickly jotted something down. "Here's what we'll do," he began. "I'm scheduling you for an ultrasound in 2 weeks. That will give us a clearer image of the mass. If needed, we may also do a fine needle aspiration to take a small tissue sample for testing, but that's only if we see anything concerning." Emma's stomach twisted. A biopsy?" "Possibly," William admitted, his tone measured. "But let's not get ahead of ourselves. The ultrasound will give us a lot of information first, and there's a very high chance that no further testing will be necessary." Emma hesitated, her nails digging into her palm. "And if it is fibroadenoma?" William offered a reassuring smile. "Then we'll simply monitor it. Most of the time, these lumps shrink on their own over time. If it ever becomes uncomfortable or grows, there's a minimally invasive procedure to remove it. But again, there's a strong chance we won't even need to go that far." Emma wasn't sure if she felt reassured or still on the verge of a breakdown. 2 weeks, she repeated softly. William nodded. "Yes, I know waiting can be difficult, but I want to be thorough. In the meantime, I want you to take care of yourself. Try not to stress too much." Emma let out a small, breathless laugh. "Right? I'll just turn my brain off for the next 2 weeks." William chuckled, and for the briefest moment, the tension in the room lifted. "I know it's easier said than done," he admitted, "but I'll be here to walk you through every step." Something in his words made her chest tighten, not in fear, but in a strange, unfamiliar warmth. She nodded hesitantly. "Okay." William stood, signaling that their appointment was over. "I'll have my assistant schedule the ultrasound. If you have any questions or concerns before then, you can call the office." Emma slid off the examination table, her legs still a little shaky. "Thanks, Dr. Hale." He studied her for a moment, as if contemplating something. Then, with a small, reassuring smile, he said, "You can just call me William." Emma's cheeks warmed instantly, and she quickly looked away. "Oh, okay." With that, she turned and walked out of the room, her heart pounding for 2 very different reasons. The moment Emma stepped outside the hospital, the crisp autumn air hit her like a wave. She sucked in a deep breath, trying to calm the whirlwind of emotions storming inside her. She should feel relieved. William had said it wasn't serious. He had said it was most likely nothing. But her anxiety refused to let go. What if they're wrong? What if it's just like Mom? She wrapped her arms around herself, staring blankly at the busy sidewalk ahead. She hated this feeling of helplessness, of waiting, of not knowing what would happen next. And yet, she couldn't stop thinking about William. Not just the diagnosis, not just the medical talk, but him. The way his voice had been so steady, so calm, like he truly cared about what happened to her. The way he had seen right through her fear, never dismissing it, never making her feel silly for being afraid. She shook her head, trying to push the thought away. He's just my doctor. That's all. But deep down, she knew. Something about William Hale unsettled her in a way she had never experienced before. Emma pulled her cardigan tighter around her body as she stepped into the small cafe near the bookstore where she worked. The rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, mingling with the quiet hum of conversation. She had been looking forward to this little escape, a few moments of solitude with a warm drink before starting her shift. She quickly scanned the room, searching for an empty table, when her breath suddenly hitched. Sitting by the window, casually stirring his coffee with an easy air of confidence, was none other than Dr. William Hale. Emma's stomach plummeted. She should turn around. Leave. Right now. But it was too late. Yeah. William looked up at that exact moment, and their eyes met. A flicker of recognition crossed his face before a slow, surprised smile spread across his lips. "Emma?" His voice carried across the cafe, warm and effortlessly charming. Emma's pulse skyrocketed. Why was he here? This wasn't his hospital. This wasn't his world. She forced an awkward smile, shifting her weight from foot to foot. "Oh, hi, Dr. Hale." William stood up, his towering presence making her feel even smaller than usual. What a coincidence. His eyes flickered to the name tag pinned to her cardigan. "Wait, do you work here?" Emma swallowed. Yeah, I do." William's smile widened. "I was wondering why this place looked familiar. One of my colleagues recommended it. And now, it turns out my patient works here too." He chuckled. "Small world." Emma's face burned. She needed to escape before she embarrassed herself further. "Well, I should." "Hold on." William tilted his head, studying her with those deep blue eyes that seemed far too observant. "Do you have a few minutes? I was just about to grab another coffee. I'd love some company." Emma's breath caught. Company? Was he serious? She opened her mouth, about to decline, but before she could speak, her manager's voice cut through the cafe. "Emma, you don't start for another 15 minutes, right?" Emma froze. William lifted an eyebrow, clearly catching on. "Well, there you go. You have time." Emma wanted to groan, betrayed by her own schedule. Seeing no way out, she hesitantly nodded and shuffled toward his table, mentally berating herself for not running when she had the chance. As soon as Emma sat down, William pushed a second cup of coffee toward her. "I ordered an extra," he said casually. "Hope you like caramel macchiato." Emma blinked, surprised. "How did you?" William smirked. "Lucky guess." Emma hesitated before wrapping her hands around the warm cup. She wasn't used to this, someone paying attention to her preferences. William leaned back, completely at ease, while Emma felt like a bundle of nerves. "So," he said, resting his elbow on the table, "you work at a bookstore. That suits you." Emma tilted her head. "What's that supposed to mean?" William chuckled. "You just seem like someone who loves books. Quiet, thoughtful, always lost in your own world." Emma flushed. "I'm not always lost in my own world." "Really?" William raised an eyebrow. "You barely looked at me during your appointment." Emma choked on her coffee. William grinned. "Relax, I'm just teasing." She glared at him, but there was no real heat behind it. Instead, she found herself smiling, something she hadn't expected. William took a sip of his coffee. "So, what kind of books do you like?" That question, the simplest question, immediately melted Emma's nerves. Her eyes lit up. Well, I really love classic literature. Jane Austen, Charlotte Bronte, Hemingway. But I also enjoy fantasy and historical fiction. Something about escaping into different worlds just feels safe." William nodded as if he truly understood. "Safe, huh? Makes sense. Reality can be overwhelming sometimes." Emma glanced at him, a little surprised. "You read?" William laughed. "What doctors aren't allowed to enjoy books?" Emma bit her lip, suddenly feeling embarrassed. "No, I just didn't expect it." William smirked. "I'm full of surprises." Something about the way he said it, the playfulness in his voice, the glint in his eyes, made Emma's stomach flip. She quickly took a sip of her coffee to compose herself. The minutes slipped by faster than Emma expected. She found herself talking more freely, opening up about her love for books, the small joys of working at the bookstore, the satisfaction of recommending the perfect novel to a customer. William listened intently, occasionally asking thoughtful questions, showing a genuine curiosity that caught her off guard. He wasn't just polite, he was engaged. For the first time, Emma wasn't just thinking of him as Dr. Hale. He felt real, human, and far too charming for her own good. Just as Emma was beginning to forget her usual shyness, her manager called out from behind the counter. "Emma, time to clock in." She startled, nearly knocking over her cup. "Oh, right. I have to go." William nodded, an amused look in his eyes. "Of course." As Emma stood up, she hesitated, debating whether she should say something else. Before she could overthink it, William beat her to it. "Emma," he said, his voice suddenly softer. She turned back to him. "Take care of yourself, all right?" His expression was serious now, all traces of teasing gone. "I'll see you in a week for your follow-up." Emma's throat tightened. She gave a small nod. "Yeah, see you then." Then, before she completely lost control of her rapidly beating heart, she turned and hurried behind the counter, fully aware of William's eyes still on her as she walked away. The fluorescent lights of the hospital hallway seemed even brighter today, making Emma feel exposed as she walked toward William's office. Her fingers clutched the strap of her purse tightly, her heart hammering against her ribs. It had been a week since their unexpected cafe encounter. A week since she had sat across from William Hale, talking about books and against all odds, actually enjoying his company. But this wasn't a casual meeting over coffee. This was a follow-up exam, and she wasn't ready. The memory of her mother's illness loomed in the back of her mind, no matter how much she tried to push it away. What if today changed everything? What if William's initial reassurance had been wrong? She exhaled sharply as she approached the door with his name on it. Before she could hesitate, the nurse called her in. "It's just a checkup. It's just William." She took a deep breath and stepped inside. William was already at his desk, reviewing her file. He looked up when she entered, his usual warm, professional expression intact, but there was something else there too. Was it because of their cafe conversation? "Emma," he greeted, standing up. "Right on time." She forced a small smile, trying not to focus on the way his deep blue eyes studied her. "Hi, Dr. Hale," she said automatically. A small smirk tugged at his lips. "I thought we agreed you could just call me William." Emma's cheeks warmed instantly. She quickly looked away. "Right, sorry. Force of habit." He chuckled, but didn't push the matter further. "All right, let's get started. We'll do the ultrasound first and check the status of the lump." "Okay." Emma nodded stiffly, feeling the nerves return full force. "Just lie back," William said gently, gesturing to the examination table. She hesitated for only a second before obeying, shifting onto the cold surface. The moment she did, she could feel her pulse racing. William adjusted the ultrasound machine, his movements calm and efficient. "I'll apply a bit of gel. It's cold, but I'll be quick." Emma barely had time to brace herself before a cool sensation touched her skin. She flinched. "Sorry," William said immediately, his voice softer now. "I'll warm it up next time." "Next time." Emma swallowed. The probe moved gently over her skin, and she forced herself to breathe evenly. She could feel William's steady hands, the warmth of his presence close to her, the careful precision in every motion. And despite her nerves, despite everything, she trusted him. A few minutes passed in complete silence as he examined the screen. Emma's fingers twitched against the fabric of her sweater. "What do you see?" she finally whispered. William's eyes flickered to her, his expression unreadable for a moment before it softened. "Nothing alarming," he assured her. "The mass is exactly as I expected, a fibroadenoma. No signs of malignancy." The breath rushed out of Emma's lungs as if she had been holding it for days. "So I'm okay?" she asked, almost not believing it. William's lips curved slightly. "You're okay." A wave of relief flooded her body, making her limbs feel almost weak. She had prepared for the worst. She had spent countless nights imagining every horrible possibility. And now, she was okay. Her muscles finally relaxed, her head sinking against the cushioned table. "Oh, thank God," she breathed. William let her have a moment before continuing. "Now, we have two options moving forward. The first is monitoring, checking in every 6 months to ensure the lump doesn't grow or change." Emma nodded, listening carefully. "The second," William went on, "is removal through a minimally invasive procedure. It's a simple outpatient surgery, quick recovery, barely any scarring. Some patients prefer this option for peace of mind." Emma hesitated. "Do you think I should remove it?" William studied her for a second before replying, "That depends on how you feel about it. Medically, there's no urgent need, but if the idea of having it causes you stress, then removing it might be the better choice." Emma bit her lip. I need to think about it." William nodded. "Take your time. There's no rush." She exhaled, trying to process it all. The fear she had been carrying for weeks was finally lifting. And then, it happened. "Ah." Emma sat up, still slightly dazed from the overwhelming relief, but her foot caught on the fabric of her sweater just as she moved to stand. Before she could react, her balance shifted. Gravity pulled her forward, and she fell directly into William. Her hands instinctively grabbed onto his shirt as his arms wrapped around her in a reflex, steadying her before she could hit the ground. Time stopped. Emma froze, her face mere inches from his chest, her hands gripping his shoulders, his fingers firm against her waist. Every nerve in her body was suddenly hyper-aware of the warmth of him, the scent of his cologne, the strength of his arms holding her up. Her heart pounded so violently she was sure he could feel it. William didn't move. For a fraction of a second, the space between them didn't exist. Then reality crashed back in. Emma yanked herself away as if she had been burned, stumbling back, face burning hotter than ever. I'm so sorry," she stammered, horrified at what just happened. William, however, looked completely calm. If he was surprised, he hid it remarkably well. His lips curved slightly, almost teasing. "Are you okay?" Emma wanted to disappear. "Yeah," she mumbled, unable to meet his gaze. William tilted his head. "You sure? You seem a little flustered." Her head snapped up, her eyes wide with embarrassment. I am not flustered." William's amused expression said otherwise. Emma clutched her purse against her chest like a shield. She needed to get out of here. "No, no." William, thankfully, didn't push further. Instead, he handed her a small folder. "Here's all the information on both treatment options. Take your time deciding, and if you have any questions, just call me." Emma snatched it up, nodding quickly. "Okay, yep, got it. Thanks, bye." And before she could do anything else humiliating, she practically sprinted out the door. William watched as the door swung shut behind her, shaking his head slightly. Emma Carter was unlike any patient he had ever met, and for reasons he couldn't quite explain. She intrigued him more than she should. The night sky was dark, heavy with rain, the sound of raindrops hitting the pavement filling the quiet streets. Emma hugged her coat tighter, her arms crossed over her chest as she hurried along the sidewalk. The bookstore had closed late, and she hadn't thought to check the weather before leaving. Now she was soaked, her hair clinging to her face, her shoes squelching with each hurried step. She just needed to get home. Then, headlights flashed nearby. A sleek black car slowed to a stop along the curb. Emma barely paid attention at first, too focused on getting out of the rain, but when the driver's side door opened, her heart stopped. A familiar, tall silhouette emerged. "William." Her stomach flipped. "Dwight." She watched in stunned silence as he quickly stepped toward her, his hair slightly damp from the rain, his white dress shirt rolled up at the sleeves. "Emma." His voice was laced with concern as he closed the distance between them. She blinked, water dripping down her eyelashes. "D. Dr. Hale?" His lips twitched at the formal address, but his focus remained on her drenched state. "You don't have an umbrella." Emma looked away, suddenly embarrassed. "I didn't check the weather." William exhaled, shaking his head. Without another word, he shrugged off his coat and draped it over her shoulders. Emma stiffened. The warmth of it, the scent of him, everything hit her at once. She quickly tried to remove it, stammering, I can't take this. You'll get wet." "Too late," William said dryly, rain dripping down his temples. Emma bit her lip, feeling incredibly awkward. William gestured toward his car. "Let me drive you home." She immediately shook her head. "Oh no, I'm fine. I live close by." William frowned. "Emma, you're shivering." She was, but she wasn't about to admit it. "It's just a little rain." William's gaze did not waver. "You'll catch a cold." Emma clutched his coat tighter, avoiding his eyes. "I don't want to trouble you." William sighed, clearly realizing she wouldn't get in his car. Instead, he stepped under the small awning beside her, leaning against the wall as rain continued pouring around them. Emma stared at him, confused. "What are you doing?" He glanced at her, completely unbothered. "Waiting with you." Her stomach flipped again. "But you don't have to do that," she murmured. William shrugged. "I'm already wet anyway." Emma didn't know what to say to that. She stood beside him, both of them silent, the sound of rain filling the space between them. The awning was small, which meant they were standing much closer than they should be. Close enough that Emma could feel the heat radiating from him, close enough that she caught the faint scent of his cologne beneath the rain. She stared straight ahead, her pulse hammering in her ears. William, on the other hand, seemed completely at ease. "This bookstore of yours," he finally said, his voice low and casual. "Do you ever get customers asking for books, but forgetting the titles?" Emma blinked at the random question before hesitantly nodding. "All the time." William huffed a small laugh. "Figures. I was at a bookstore last month and spent half an hour trying to describe a book one read years ago. I think the poor clerk wanted to strangle me." Emma surprised herself by laughing. The mental image was too funny. William turned toward her, watching her carefully. "You should laugh more often." Emma's breath hitched. The way he said it, quiet, sincere, almost as if he meant it in a way beyond just casual conversation, made her chest tighten. She glanced away. I do laugh." "Not enough," William said smoothly. Emma swallowed. This was dangerous. The way he looked at her. The way her heart was reacting to him. This was not supposed to happen. She forced a small, awkward chuckle. "Well, I guess I have to thank you for making me laugh then." William's gaze lingered for a second before he gave her a lazy, charming smirk. "Anytime, Emma." She really needed this rain to stop. Emma sat curled up on her couch, a cup of tea growing cold in her hands. The rain from earlier had finally stopped, leaving the streets outside glistening under the city lights. The encounter with William still lingered in her mind, the warmth of his coat, the easy way he had stood beside her in the rain, the way he had made her laugh. It had been nice. Too nice. She needed to stop thinking about him. With a sigh, she reached for her phone, intending to distract herself. But as soon as she unlocked the screen, a notification from a news site flashed across the top. "Hale Medical Group. The future of private healthcare." Emma frowned. Hale. Her stomach twisted. Aye. Curious, she clicked on the article, expecting nothing, but what she saw made her blood run cold. Dr. William Hale, the only son and heir of the Hale Medical Group, has been making waves in the healthcare industry. Despite his family's billion-dollar empire, he has chosen to work as a practicing physician, distancing himself from corporate leadership. Known for his dedication to patients, Dr. Hale has been a strong advocate for accessible breast cancer screenings and early detection programs. Emma stopped reading. She stared at the screen, heart pounding. William was a millionaire? No, a billionaire. The realization hit her like a freight train. The easy confidence, the effortless charm, the way he carried himself, it all made sense now. He wasn't just a doctor. He was the heir to a massive medical empire. And she? She was just a shy girl working in a bookstore, struggling to even talk to people without blushing like an idiot. Emma's fingers tightened around her phone. She had been so naive. She had actually started to feel comfortable around him. But this? This changed everything. The next morning, Emma made a decision. She couldn't see William again. Not like before. They were from two different worlds, and it was foolish to think otherwise. So, she did the only thing she could. She avoided him. She ignored his reminder for her follow-up appointment. She left his texts unread. When his office called to reschedule, she declined politely and insisted she was fine. Days passed, then a week, then another. And yet, he never stopped trying to reach her. Each missed call, each unread message made her chest ache, but she forced herself to ignore it. She was doing the right thing, wasn't she? See? William stared at his phone, a frown tugging at his lips. His latest text, no reply. His office had called, she had declined. Emma was avoiding him. He leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair. She had been perfectly fine last time they spoke. She had laughed with him. He had seen the way she was starting to open up. And now, suddenly nothing. Something wasn't right. And William intended to find out why. That evening, as Emma was restocking books at the store, the bell above the door chimed. She barely glanced up, until she heard his voice. Emma. Her entire body stiffened. She turned slowly, heart slamming against her ribs as she met William's gaze. He stood near the entrance, still in his work attire, his coat draped over his arm. His expression was unreadable, calm, yet intensely focused. Emma's fingers curled into the fabric of the book she was holding. "William," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. His gaze flickered, as if noticing the way she said his name so cautiously now. "Are you avoiding me?" he asked outright. Emma's breath hitched. She looked away, forcing a small, unconvincing laugh. "No, I've just been busy." William's jaw tightened. "You missed your follow-up." Emma's stomach twisted. I feel fine. There was no need. That wasn't your call to make." Emma's eyes snapped up to meet his, startled by the quiet intensity in his voice. William took a step closer, lowering his tone. "Emma, I know something's wrong. You won't answer my calls, you won't text back, and now you're acting like I'm a stranger." Her throat felt tight. She swallowed. "I don't think it's a good idea to see each other anymore." William stilled. Something flickered in his gaze, a realization. "You found out." Emma's breath caught. "You know who I am," he said, his voice quieter now. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. William exhaled, shaking his head. "That's why you're doing this." Emma took a step back, her fingers gripping the bookshelf behind her for support. "William, it's not personal." "It feels personal," he cut in, his tone firm but controlled. Emma's chest ached. "I just think we're different." You come from a world I don't belong in." William's eyes darkened slightly. "And who decided that?" Emma let out a breathless, bitter laugh. "Reality, William. You're the heir to a medical empire. You have everything. I'm just." Her voice caught, her emotions unraveling faster than she could control them. William took another step forward, his presence overwhelming. "You think I care about any of that?" Emma's heart pounded. "You think I see you as just anything?" William's voice was low, steady, unwavering. She didn't know how to answer that. William exhaled sharply, rubbing a hand over his face before looking at her again. "Emma, I don't care about my last name. I don't care about the money. I don't care what world people think I belong to." He took one more step, too close now, close enough for her to feel his warmth. "The only thing I care about right now is why the hell you think I'd let you push me away so easily." Emma's pulse roared in her ears. She had expected anger, maybe even frustration, but she hadn't expected this. This quiet determination, this absolute refusal to let her go. Her hands trembled. "William." But before she could say anything else, before she could process the way he was looking at her, like she was something worth fighting for, her manager's voice rang out. "Emma," breaks over. Reality crashed back in. Emma inhaled sharply, breaking the moment. I have to go." William clenched his jaw, but after a second he nodded. "Fine, go." But as she turned, his voice stopped her one last time. "This isn't over, Emma." Her chest tightened. Tea? She knew it wasn't. The bookstore was quiet, the kind of stillness that only came in the early evening before the rush of last-minute customers. Emma stood behind the counter, pretending to organize a stack of books, but her thoughts were anywhere but here. She had been distracted all day, her mind replaying William's words from their last conversation. "This isn't over, Emma." She had told herself to forget it, that he would let it go. She should have known better. The bell above the door chimed. Emma looked up, and her stomach dropped. William. He walked in like he owned the space, his presence effortlessly commanding, his piercing gaze locked directly on her. Emma's fingers tensed around the book she was holding. She had spent weeks avoiding him, convincing herself that it was for the best. But now, standing here, trapped in his unwavering stare, her carefully built walls felt like they were crumbling. He strode toward her with purpose, stopping just in front of the counter. No hesitation, no pretense. "Why are you avoiding me?" His voice was calm, steady, but there was an edge to it, a quiet demand for answers. Emma swallowed, her pulse hammering. I haven't been avoiding you," she lied. William tilted his head, unimpressed. "Try again." Emma's grip on the book tightened. I thought it would be best if we..." "If we what?" William cut in smoothly. "Pretend we don't know each other? Act like nothing happened?" Emma's breath hitched. Her silence was answer enough. William exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck before leaning in slightly, his voice dropping to something quieter, something more dangerous. "Emma, just tell me the truth." Emma's chest tightened. She couldn't run anymore. Not when he was standing right here, looking at her like this. She forced herself to meet his gaze. "I'm just a normal girl, William," she whispered, voice barely holding steady. "And you're..." She hesitated. "Perfect." The word hung between them, heavier than she intended. William's eyes darkened, something unreadable flickering behind them. "You think I'm perfect?" he repeated, his tone quieter now, but there was something almost dangerous about the way he said it. Emma's heart pounded. "You are!" William's jaw tightened. "Emma, you come from a different world," she interrupted. "A world of money, success, everything. And I don't belong in that world." She didn't mean for it to sound so raw, but it came out that way. She expected him to argue, to dismiss it. But instead, William took a slow step forward, his gaze never leaving hers. Then another. Until there was barely any space left between them. "You think I care about any of that?" His voice was low, firm, intense. Emma froze, suddenly unable to breathe. William's eyes searched hers, as if trying to pull her apart piece by piece, unraveling every doubt she had. "The only thing I care about," he said, "is you." Emma's stomach flipped violently. She couldn't look away, couldn't move. Couldn't think. Sigh. William was standing too close now, his presence overwhelming, his words wrapping around her like a force she couldn't escape. "You don't get to decide that you're not good enough for me," he murmured. "That's not your choice to make." Emma's breath hitched sharply. William, I? But before she could finish, before she could break apart completely, William did the last thing she expected. He reached out, slowly, carefully, as if testing her reaction, and then, with an unbearable softness, he tilted her chin up slightly. And then, he leaned in, but not to kiss her. No. His lips pressed gently against her forehead. Emma stopped breathing. Everything inside her froze. It was soft, lingering just a second too long. But it was enough. Enough to completely undo her. When William pulled back, his gaze never wavered from hers. Emma's entire body felt like it was burning. Her legs felt weak. Her heart was out of control. William didn't speak. He didn't have to. Because in that moment, Emma knew. This wasn't just attraction. It wasn't just chemistry. This was something more dangerous. Something she wasn't sure she could fight anymore. The hospital room was quiet, except for the steady beeping of the heart monitor. Emma lay on the bed, her body still heavy from the lingering effects of anesthesia. The soft glow of the overhead light made everything feel surreal, like she was floating between dreams and reality. Then, a voice deep, familiar, and filled with quiet concern cut through the haze. "Emma?" Her eyelids fluttered open. And there he was, William, sitting beside her bed, his shirt slightly wrinkled, his sleeves rolled up, like he hadn't left her side at all. Emma blinked up at him, her mind struggling to catch up. "You're still here?" she murmured, her voice hoarse. William let out a breath, one corner of his lips tugging up in amusement. "Where else would I be?" Emma swallowed hard, emotions swirling inside her. The last thing she remembered was being wheeled into surgery, his hand gripping hers, his voice the last thing she heard before the anesthesia took her under. "You're okay," William continued softly, as if he needed to say it out loud just to believe it himself. "The surgery went perfectly. The tumor's gone." Gone. Emma let the words settle in. The fear she had carried for weeks, the sleepless nights, the anxiety, the uncertainty, it was all over. She was okay. A slow, overwhelming sense of relief washed over her. And then, William did something that completely undid her. He reached out, hesitating only for a second, before gently taking her hand in his. It was warm, strong, steady. Emma felt her heart skip a beat. "I meant what I said before," William murmured. Emma blinked at him. "What?" His thumb brushed lightly over her knuckles. "That I don't care about your idea of different worlds. That I don't care about money or status." He leaned in slightly, his gaze locked onto hers, every word he spoke filled with quiet intensity. "The only thing I care about is you." Emma's breath caught. He wasn't teasing. He wasn't trying to lighten the moment. This was real. Raw. A confession that left no room for doubt. Emma's throat tightened. "William, I know you're scared," he continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "I know you overthink things, but I also know one thing for sure." His fingers tightened slightly around hers. "I don't want to spend another day pretending like this is just some coincidence. Like I don't feel something every time I'm near you." Emma felt like the air had been knocked out of her lungs. William's jaw clenched, as if trying to steady himself before saying, "I'm in love with you." The words hit her like a tidal wave. Emma froze, her heart pounding so violently she thought it might actually stop. William watched her, waiting, giving her the space to run if she wanted to. But she didn't. Instead, something inside her finally gave in. Emma let out a shaky breath, her lips parting, her emotions crashing into her all at once. And then, without overthinking, she did the only thing that felt right. She squeezed his hand and whispered, "I think I love you too." William's expression softened instantly, like he had been holding his breath for far too long. He let out a quiet, relieved chuckle before leaning down, pressing a slow, lingering kiss against her forehead. This time, Emma didn't pull away. She let herself feel it. The warmth of him. The safety. The love. And for the first time in a long time, she knew she had made the right choice. 1 year later, the hospital lobby was bustling with life, patients, doctors, nurses, families all moving through the hallways. Emma stood at the entrance, looking up at the large glass doors she used to dread walking through. But today was different. Today she wasn't here as a patient. She was here with William. A warm hand slipped into hers, fingers intertwining effortlessly. She turned, meeting his familiar blue eyes, the same ones that had once filled her with nerves, now filled with something much deeper. "You ready?" William asked, squeezing her hand gently. Emma smiled. "Yeah," she said softly. "I am." Together they stepped inside, side by side, hand in hand, ready to help others the way William had helped her. Because sometimes love didn't just heal hearts. It healed souls too. And that, my friends, is how a shy girl's journey to a simple medical checkup turned into an unexpected love story, one filled with uncertainty, fear, and ultimately, the courage to open her heart. Emma walked into that hospital feeling alone and terrified. But through the kindness, patience, and unwavering devotion of Dr. William Hale, she found not just healing but love, a love that defied status, expectations, and the walls she had built around herself. Their story reminds us that sometimes the things we fear the most lead us to the greatest blessings in life. And that love, the kind that is patient, kind, and refuses to let go, has the power to heal in ways we never expect. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Soul Stirring Stories, where we bring you the most heartfelt, emotional, and inspiring love stories that will stay with you long after they end. And remember, sometimes love finds us when we least expect it. See you in the next story.